Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Two Wizards and a Mic, where a couple of old D&D players talk about a game they love, and, well, what else? That's basically what we do here. So, welcome. We hope that anything we say will will provide you a better game. So, I am Shane.
And I am Andrew.
And today we are talking about a little book in the background somewhere. I think I can see it, called Monsters of the Underworld, which is a book that came out in 2019, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. Yes.
And it's a collection of is it 100 or is this one a little more than 100? I think it was a bit more.
Yeah, this one's 110 monsters, the second book in our monster series, and the second book actually published in 2019. I was just looking back, and Phaland was published in February 2019, and then this was published in December of the same year.
You did two in a year? Holy cow.
Yeah, and actually, it's possible we could do that this year as well,
Yes.
because Phaland 2 was published earlier this year, and the Dungeon book, it's very possible it could be published by the end of the year.
Nice. Well, hey, it's not like they can call you lazy DM.
What a terrible name. Who would use that?
Well, okay, so let's talk about some monsters. Do you have any particular favorites you'd like to start off on, or should we just go right from the beginning?
I think we should just go through. And again, I should mention the artist for all of the art in all of this series is Travis Hansen out of the beautiful state of California. And yeah, we can start at the beginning there. This one we made even more than it's more than a monster book. It's really a campaign book too. If you want to run an underworld adventure or a campaign, this has tons of lore, and you'll see in the book it's not just monsters. We came up with the story of the character featured on the cover there. So he's a monster hunter, a kind of ranger, and we've included that subclass in the book as well. And he's sort of based on a character that I had when I played Skyrim, and this idea of a warrior sage, kind of a warrior. So there's sort of some Jedi in there too, but it's a warrior who studies monsters and knows them. Obviously, this has connections to The Witcher, although I actually didn't know anything about The Witcher when I wrote it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those synchronicities. Even the character that Travis drew, I don't think he based it on. I don't think he based it on The Witcher. I could be wrong, but yeah, I definitely didn't. But there are definite similarities. Although my Witcher is not as dark. Surprise, surprise. And there's also some adventure hooks early on in the book. The back cover there shows a Drow city.
Which is one of my favorite pieces of art, I have to say. The Drow City stuff is really cool.
Agreed. Yeah, I love what Travis did there. And if you look to the right, actually, you can actually see a party of adventurers making
Right
their
down in the
way
corner.
through. Yeah, a lot of people didn't notice that. Yeah, yeah. Very Lord of the
Okay.
Rings, actually.
Well,
There's a lot of Tolkien inspiration in this book. Tolkien
especially, I
and
mean, that is like gives that just those tiny characters gives you such scale about exactly like
yeah,
you
Tolkien,
know
and
what
then
to
the other
expect.
main inspiration is a series of modules by Gary Gygax in the 80s called D1 to 3 about the underworld.
Monsters of the Underworld.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can move through this. So, as I said here, there's some advice for dungeon masters about how to use the underworld, some things to consider. And then the little details about this monster hunter, Desmond Hawkeye, who's featured in a bit of a story that you could use if you want. And his faction is called the Alliance of the Griffin. We have that faction run through the first four books, and then we wrap it up in the Monsters of the Wilderness book to explain. So if you look in all those books, there's more details about it. And the leader of that faction, who's a griffin, sort of an angel griffin, he's in the Monsters of the Wilderness book. Yeah. So there's actually a funny story. So there's the crystal dragon that shows up in the book on the left. But the funny story is originally the first monster alphabetically was going to be an angel.
Right.
Um, and I do have a lot of angels coming in the new book. But with this book, at the last moment, I decided that made no sense. Having a book about the underworld and having the first creature you see is an angel. So I completely got rid of it. I don't not only took him out, I took him out of the whole book. And so we start here with the animated statue. And those of you who know me dungeon mastering will know that I love constructs and things that come to life. So that's
Oh,
what you have
exactly.
here.
And I like the fact that it's covered in blood. I mean, that to me is just kind of
Yeah,
hey.
that's Travis. That's a little artistic license that he took there. So yeah. All right. So here we have the most powerful creature in the Monsters of the Underworld books, challenge rating 30. This is sort of like our version of the Underworld Tarask. It's basically like the environment itself has come to life. This massive, massive monster, and you could use it directly against a really high level party, or you could just have it as part of the lore of the underworld.
I want to point out the boatman. This is actually my favorite character. Um, and also notable is this stuff when you started doing this in this book. I think this
Mhm.
is the first time you did this stuff, like flora of the of insert title of book that you've done. I love those little tiny things, like those little tiny elements where
Yeah.
you could be going, "I need a creature," and you could actually have these things pop up in your eyesight, going, "Oh, you know what? My party needs to encounter those," which I just love. So, and
Oh,
we have
thanks. Yeah.
encountered them in our adventures. Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, we did do that in the Phelan book a little bit, but we did it a lot more in this book where we have a few flora sprinkled in there in the inserts that Shane's mentioning on the Boatman page. We also have some other things in the book that we've added, and I like adding those little treats for DMs again to add more to the world. So the boatman obviously is very clearly a version of the ferryman from the mythology of the river Styx, but we wanted to change it up, so I gave him spells. I made his oar like a weapon that he could use, and I gave him powers to drain hit points, which is a really horrible thing to do. It's very old school D&D, but I love it. And the flora, this is the first one, and this is one of my favorites, which we actually put in the next two books after this one is the dumb guy fungi. And what
Which
happens is
reduces your intelligence.
if you eat this, yes, your intelligence goes down by 2 for a day. So,
I just love that. I absolutely love that part because that just like these things are so incredibly innocent in my mind, yet they're not. I mean,
well, I
we've had
love
characters
to,
that are like, "I'll just eat that, no problem," and then they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, that was a bad idea." Love it.
Well, part of the reason I did it too, like I know Gary Gygax actually used to love to play with language. Like he included a lot of more lengthy words just to help actually players learn these words. Like he was doing his duty for society. But and what I love is that if you know how to pronounce fungi, this is you can decode this. But a lot of people would pronounce it wrong, and this wouldn't make any sense at all. They'd be like, "What's dumgy fungi?" So I like that if you know, you know.
I love it. Um, but yeah, my favorite character because I love the idea that he's a mythical creature of this,
Mhm.
has a task to do, and you know. But moving on to Careless Whisper.
Yeah, so here, one of my many musical inspirations and another joke, which you will find in these books. Um, I was a fan of Wham in the 80s, and if you want to see their latest Netflix documentary, I highly recommend it. Here we have a very famous song called Careless Whisper, and I thought that's a great name for a monster who basically gives disadvantage on initiative or saving throws and just drains the party of a few. It's one of those more subtle things that you might not think is important, but it could be. And there are a lot of musical references in this monster series.
The Cave Hydra.
All right, so here another Tolkien inspiration. This is really modeled after the monster at the door to the mines of Moria that comes out of the lake. And this is a version of that. Although what I did with this one is it has tentacles and it can swallow as well. Um, and it can use its tentacles to actually move itself across the land and charge creatures. It's quite tough, CR15, and yeah, the cave hydra.
I always kind of find the cave hydra sort of makes me feel like it's a bit lonely because it can, sit for a long time before anybody comes along.
Yeah,
And you kind of feel sorry for it because it's somewhat
yeah.
starving and it just wants to meal. It's not like evil or anything, in my opinion. But
Well, yeah. Actually,
it's
I
just
didn't. I
hungry.
didn't make it evil. I made it more beast-like. It has no alignment, and there's actually a person who did a beautiful job of making a miniature of this. And then
Really?
somebody else painted it. So I'll post that online. Um, yeah, it's really amazing. It looks exactly like Travis's art,
Nice.
and yeah, that's happened a couple of times, which has been really really cool. The next monster really is one of the many that is inspired by the terrain. So in the underworld, you would have valleys and chasms, and um, it would be a difficult area to navigate. And one of the creatures I decided was this demonic kind of chasm fiend. So it lives in those cracks and chasms, and um, yeah, it's a fairly straightforward monster, but I like the idea that some creatures have said they made their way in here from other worlds.
The Dark Maiden.
All right, so this is like I have a running. Um, there's lots of monsters I have who represent this archetype of the femme fatale. I think it's a very key archetype to deal with. Um, this creature actually, in her normal state, looks like basically she's supposed to look like the girl next door, and she's supposed to look really innocent and harmless, and that you would run into her in the underworld, or like these monsters could be used other places, but in the underworld you'd run into her and she'd seem so harmless and friendly, and um, but in truth she's actually this hideous monster. And Travis, instead of doing the kind of girl next door idea, he did this. So yeah, I might have asked him, I might have said, hey, let's try to do both, like try to have a kind of like a mirroring picture where you show both sides of her, because I think sometimes that's missed. If you read it, uh, she doesn't normally look like that, and if she did look like that, everybody would run away.
Of
Because
course. Of
the whole
course.
point of her is that she is really innocent, and you're like, what is she doing here? What is she doing in this dangerous? Because the underworld is extremely dangerous.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but Travis decided to do what, this is what you would see when she showed herself.
I like again, Travis outdoes himself, but I like the fact of how this sort of, sparkles.
Yeah.
It just looks cool.
Yeah, that's a great effect for sure. For sure.
Oh, one of my other favorite characters, the Dark Trader. The art sells me on this character like right away. Like
Yeah.
that just looks so cool.
Well, I do like to have creatures or characters that help the world to make sense, and like how would the economy run here, and what would merchants be like here. So that's what these are, and they're actually fey creatures who live in the Underdark, and they're like the merchant class, and there's caravans of them who travel through the underworld. And I made them evil because, of course, they're business people, and they're trying to take advantage of people.
Hmm.
So, and they're also slavers often. Um, so, yeah, it's a pretty nasty character. He has some magic, and I think he does add a lot to the story. Even with role play, I think it would be quite interesting.
The deep guide. I love this idea of characters that are helpful
Hmm.
or potentially helpful, but are also characters where you kind of wonder at the same time if they're,
Yeah,
leading you into potential,
yeah,
I don't know, dragon's mouths or something.
Well, I think the archetype of the guide, I mean, is very important. It's great to have somebody who helps you, but ultimately you're going to have to do it alone. Eventually, the guide's going to teach you how to do that. So that's really what this is. Another fey creature, as you said, a guide. Like we have quite a few of these guide type creatures and characters in the books. This
Yeah.
one for the underworld, or you could easily use them in Feyland. And as you say, if you read it here, it says, though he can be very helpful, he is a survivor and primarily will look after himself. He's ultimately a coward and will flee any fights if they aren't going well. So this guide is not, he's not there to look after you, um, unless things are going well.
You guys are on your own. Good luck with all that.
Yeah.
The demon frog and the demon snail. The demon snail, of course, being the very first creature that we saw when the art started coming in when this book was being put together. Because I think, wasn't it this creature, you put it on a sticker or something? Like, was something that you gave us during a game session once.
Yeah. Yeah. A few of our illustrations, we have merchandise, which we'll have. You can usually get it off our website. Right now, it's not live, but we'll activate that shortly. So we have a lot of T-shirts and stickers and things like that, and books that have images from different monsters in the books. And one of the most popular is this one. I know there's a guy who lives in Prague in the Czech Republic who proudly, he's a regular customer, proudly um, wears his Demon Snails shirt in Prague all the time. And I love the demon frog. We have a strong frog theme in our book that was not intentional, although my younger brother is frog obsessed since he was a little kid. So maybe he passed that on to me. So there's a lot of frogs in our books, a lot of rabbits in our books too. And here we have a demon frog. The demon snail, I thought it would be hilarious if it was fast. So if you look at the speed, it's really fast. It's with 40 feet,
40?
and it
Yeah,
can also
holy hell.
charge. So I thought that'd be quite funny. And then we have our trilogy of demon creatures. The next one is the demon spider. And of course, because we have the underworld, there's a lot of spider themes, and the drow are connected to spiders. And we have another one of the flora, the talk stock. So it helps you learn a new language and forget all the other languages you know for a day. However, after one day, you learn that language from then on, and you remember your other ones. So yeah, talk stock.
The fox stock. And the demon dog, of course, looks like a demon dog does. Or sorry,
Well,
demon
actually,
diamond dog.
Diamond
Diamond dog is
Dog.
what I meant.
Yeah. So another inspiration, and there's also a David Bowie theme in the books, and the Diamond Dog is an elemental, often used by the Duergar, and made of diamonds. But I made sure the players couldn't take advantage of that because if it is killed for its diamond substance, it just melts into the earth. So you can't use it. You have to think about what would the players do, and I would always, and I think that they would kill these and try to sell them. So I made sure that wasn't going to happen. And then we have another flora, the Carol stock, and it once consumed, you're under the effects of a reduce or enlarge spell for 1 minute, and that's a tribute to Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland.
I like the fact that it's striped. This is
Yeah,
again another favorite of mine, just because again the art, like holy hell, like
yeah,
the crystal dragon, like to me that
yeah.
is just it looks cool.
So the
Everything
Crystal
looks cool.
Dragon, very dangerous, CR 19. It has a paralyzing breath with its crystal breath too, so that can be big problems for the party. The Lava Dragon obviously has a lava breath, extremely powerful, challenge rating 23, the toughest of the dragons in here. And then we have the Spore Dragon, which begins the theme in this book of evil, intelligent spores that have been sent out that are taking over and infecting things. And that theme is throughout the whole book. And later on, you find out where these spores are coming from in the book.
We won't spoil that then.
No. And then we launch into more Skyrim inspiration, although the Draugr is something from European mythology, not just Skyrim. We have a couple of them, a basic Draugr undead, and then the Draugr Lord, which is much tougher. And I added a shadow jump for these guys, so they're super deadly in the dark because they can move around, teleporting in the dark. And on the Draugr Lord page, there's also another flora. And again, it has to do with how you pronounce the word. And so it's called an edible or edible. So it's something that if you eat it, you it's basically like having a whole day of rations.
That is so cool. That one I did not remember. I'm kind of glad that
Yeah.
I can still be surprised by this book because I've had this for a while.
Hey, I
And
wrote
of
it.
course,
I still get surprised.
the rock fungi.
Yeah. So the
Love
flora on
that.
the next page is one that if you take it, if you eat it, your armor class goes up for 1 minute. So as anybody knows in the game, 1 minute is a long time. So that would be very useful in a fight. And the Driders are pretty nasty creatures, but here we made a very, very dangerous Drider, an elite Drider.
Absolutely so cool.
All right. So there's
Ambitious.
a few humanoid races that we have multiple versions of. The first is of the Duergar, who are these evil gray dwarves who live in the underworld. They're known as extremely serious and dour characters. And I gave them a Duer dagger, a few of them, which is this especially deadly um, magical dagger. So we have the assassin Duergar, the Duergar king, and the Duergar rock knight. And the cool thing about these creatures too is the king and the rock knight have psionics, and all of them have this ability to enlarge or reduce themselves, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I love the shield Travis did and the
It
map. Yeah.
it it looks like the Punisher.
Yeah. And the mask is just wicked. I love that.
I like the dwarven. That actually, that I would wear on a T-shirt, like
Okay,
without a
noted.
doubt.
Noted. Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces of art that Travis has done. So this is a dwarven construct, somewhat similar to an iron golem, but a bit different. It breathes fire. It's got a massive great sword, and it's resistant and immune to quite a lot of effects. So challenge rating 18 is a very, very dangerous um, creature, although it's usually on the side of good because the dwarves have created it, but you can change that.
Of course,
Yeah.
dwarf bear rider.
Yeah. So now we have a whole bunch of dwarves. First, the bear rider, sort of like a ranger dwarf on an armored bear, which is also in this book later on. The flora is another pronunciation, the dislichen.
I'm out.
So,
I'm out. See you later. Goodbye. Dad joke 400 in the book.
yeah, that's right.
Dislike
So bioluminescent yellow lichen. If you consume it, you make all your charisma checks at disadvantage for a day because you're disliking.
Dwarf Crasher, the dwarf king.
Yeah, so there's a sort of a general character, then a crasher who's really based on police SWAT teams that break
Yeah.
down doors, or knights who used to use rams to break into buildings and castles.
Yeah.
Then we have the king, who also has some powers from his throne, which I thought would be cool. And
Again, a
then
gorgeous piece of art for a throne.
yeah, that one we actually have in our merchandise, that king. So you can wear him around on a t-shirt if you want.
Nice.
Now, the infected dwarf, again, this theme of these spores, these evil spores that are taking over. So it actually changes the alignment of these dwarves to neutral evil. And this has caused a civil war in the dwarf kingdom, these zombie dwarves. Then we have a dwarf wizard, and then a dwarf miner. I thought it would be cool again to sort of talk about, how does this world function? What's the economy like? So here we have the miners, and then I added a part in there because I grew up hearing a lot about the miners in South Africa and the gold mines and the diamond mines. So I added that they're known for their beautiful songs and what a difficult job they have and dangerous job they have. So that's added in there as well.
Major metalheads.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we have the spider hunter, who's a ranger, who's especially, adept at taking out spiders because the drow are a major enemy of theirs. And then the spy, who really is very very brave and goes into drow and Duergar territory and actually disguises himself as a drow or a Duergar. Although as a drow he'd be rather short.
I was gonna say, like, that
Yeah.
you can't normally change your size.
Well, he could easily go into a drow city as a deep gnome or something else, right? They have
Okay.
other creatures around, so he wouldn't have to be a drow. And then we have a whole bunch of the dark elves. We have the assassin drow, which is really deadly. The infected one, which is an amazing picture. I know a lot of people love that art of the infected drow on the left there. And then one of my favorites is Travis's this very graceful noble. I love the what Travis did there. So she's sort of a spellcasting warrior. Then we have a ranger type.
Okay, this is the artwork that I really like as well. Like, the fact that there's action to it is just very cool.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
it's got
We
this,
try
like,
to do
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
we try to do more and more of that. In the new book, in the dungeon book, Monsters of the Dungeon, there's going to be more action than before. But I agree. And Travis agrees too. We like to try to do that. Um, then starting with the Rebel, there's a couple in a row who are, I thought it'd be cool, the Drower matriarchy, ruled by their spider demoness queen and priestesses, and the women are in charge. The female drawer in charge. I thought it'd be funny if there was a rebellion of males who were like fed up with the matriarchy. So that's why I have these two. So there's a rebellion brewing, and actually Travis's art there with the guy with the flag that looks exactly like something out of the French Revolution,
Oh, it totally
like
does. Like,
almost
I'm already
like
hearing the music
yeah,
for
like
the
line
for the
like Les
music.
Miserables or something like
Yeah.
almost like every part. Yeah, every part of that looks like the French Revolution to me. All right, and then our last drow is the drow sage, and you'll love which the inspiration for that, which is the sexy librarian.
Really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If you look on the last title there, beautiful bookworm.
Many dark elves marvel at the beauty of these wise females. However, they are obsessed with their work and have little time for romance. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, actually, I forgot. There is one more drow. There's this. Oh no, there's two more. There's a lot in this book. So there's the spider rider, which again, a lot of people love that image, and that's in our merchandise too. And then the spy, who like the dwarves have spies in the drow territory, the reverse is true as well. So they send their shortest drow out to the dwarf city.
Go get them.
Yeah. All right. So
Now,
yeah.
that's about halfway through. Do you want to cover a few more?
Yeah, just a few more. So the mushroom people in regular Dungeons and Dragons, especially in fifth edition, are quite underwhelming. They're quite weak and they really don't do very much. So we
Yeah.
made some that are much tougher. The regular funga, and then the funga king, who's quite powerful and has magical abilities, and then the funga shaman, which I think is one of my funniest names, which is a spellcasting fungi creature. And there
Yeah,
we
the
have
other
another
cool piece of
flora.
design.
Yeah, the glowbell, which is just used as a lantern basically in the underworld. And yeah, you like that art?
I love again, it's about the action. The character is like,
Yeah,
you know, preparing something. You know, they're looking you, they're staring you down, and they're like, okay,
Right.
let's do this.
All
And of
right.
course, the fungi worm, which again is a piece of art I've seen several times. So
Yeah, it's the one that's on the cover. So a giant worm creature can, and that actually breathes out these spores. Then we have a creature that's really inspired by the roper, what the roper can do. But this time, it's a creature that's usually on the ceiling or the wall of passages. Well, I guess the roper does that too, but it reaches down with arms and grabs creatures and pulls them up into its mouth. It has quite a high armor class and can easily hide and be a very dangerous surprise. Then the gargoyle, regular gargoyles are not super dangerous. We made a giant version that's really tough. And this one has a different feature where it can paralyze. It has a paralyzing touch, which I thought was appropriate because they're sort of like stone statues. We have the cave giant, who's a kind of a giant ruled by his stomach, and he can swallow pretty much anything. Um, and instead of a flora, we talk about this river in the underworld, and if you drink from it, you forget what happened the last 8 hours.
the doubt trout probably lives there too.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know. Then we have
Exactly.
a few more giants. The fungi giant, which again releases spores. Three-headed one we thought would be kind of cool. We have this gloomy, depressed giant, the gloom giant, who even has like this groan that he sends out that
I'm
damages
gonna
people.
kill you,
Yeah,
baby.
exactly. The lava giant who can hurl lava at you, and he's pretty dangerous, high armor class. And the thunder giant, one of my favorite pieces of art, who has this massive hammer, but also has a thunder shout that does damage.
He reminds me of oh, that
Thor.
actor. Yeah, the Chris Hemsworth kind of.
Oh,
He's got
okay.
that physique, but sort
Yeah.
of with Ron Perlman thrown in too, like the guy that played the devil character. His name escapes me. Hellboy.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Travis is a huge Hellboy fan. I know that. To me, it's
Must
very
be really
Norse.
awesome.
It's kind of Norse-like, which I love. Very Nordic. Um, the last one probably we can look at today is the next one, the Giant Queen, the last giant in the book. We have the King of the Giants in Feyland. I thought it'd be cool to include a queen this time. And I told Travis, can you make her kind of look like Pat Benatar from the 80s?
I was just gonna say it looks
So,
like Pat Benatar.
yeah,
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Okay,
yeah.
I want to encounter her in an adventure
So I
game
wanted
someday.
like a Billy Idol, Pat Benatar kind of giant. And if you look, one of her abilities is a rebel yell.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's about half of this monsters collection, which really is also a campaign book.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that's the thing, and I've commented about this before, where because you've done not just these, resources. Like they're not just a resource; they're also, uh, you've got the at the very beginning adventure kickoffs, very popular kind of thing to do.
Yeah,
But the
the
fact that you
adventure book.
actually have the thread, like this is the very when this book came out, this was I think the second time you sort of did this, where you had this little minor thread, and then that actually you grew that in later books. So
Yeah.
that to me, if somebody just picks up this book, then they could actually come up with an adventure fairly quickly of like, oh wait a minute, I could totally have blah 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 blah, and here are all the creatures laid out for me that they're going to encounter. Instant,
Hmm.
almost like an instant sort of adventure, to be honest. Like that to me is very very useful, very useful. But I'm biased, so what can I say? Um, for the episode next week, we are going to talk about the rest of the monsters and probably a few more details here and there. because yeah, I mean, once we've kind of touched on them, we can actually talk about like what kind of adventures they would be suitable for, what kind of like going back to our episode not too long ago, talking about environments and creatures, about where they belong, and stuff like that. Because especially with the Fae books, there it's obvious where these characters should be living and that kind of thing. Underdark and the Underworld, not so clear in my mind because
Mhm.
there are so many adventures where the Underdark is very very different. Feyland is just a crazy nightmare, and it's like, okay, well, if it's like made of bubbles, okay, it's made of bubbles this time. Where the Underdark is kind of a mysterious place where a lot of adventures that I've been in and run, uh, the Underdark is kind of one of the places that you don't tend to go to that often, at least in my experience. Uh, I find ourselves in Feyland way more often than the Underdark,
Mhm.
and so having creatures that are actually able to live there, but especially, yeah, I fully support the idea that we need more fungi in the Underdark because, yeah, cultures grow, cultures are, it's very dark down there. I mean, it's in the name. But anyway, but that's just a taste of what's in the book. And next week we'll finish this book, and who knows, there are more books that we can talk about in the future. So, and when is any updates for the Kickstarter, the current one running?
Sure. Yeah, we're the art is continuing again. So Travis has done the first two chapters of the new book, Monsters of the Dungeon. I'll leave the link below if you want to pre-order or take a look at it some more. And then if you want to follow along with the progress, again, like I've mentioned before, you can check our Discord below or the Kickstarter page, and you'll see the pages that are coming in. And now Travis is working on the third chapter, and he just sent me some sketches which I put up on the Discord of the newest creatures. And actually, these are some of my favorite ones he's ever done. Actually, some of the new pictures I've just seen. Um, yeah,
I won't spoil it because I think I saw them earlier this morning and saw the sketches and where things are going. So
yeah,
I gotta say, I love it. I'm excited by that one. I'm excited by the next one. But enough of me fanboying. Of course, everything that we've talked about, there will be links down in the thing. Follow on social, all the social stuff, because we might stick around on X, but you never know. We might go somewhere else. But we'll talk about that another time. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget, there's also an audio version. Go listen to that too. Not that it's any different, it'll just be us, and you won't be able to see us, which is kind of sad. You should really watch us too. Anyway, enough of me yabbering. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.
later.